Welcome back. Addressing the concerns women of color have during pregnancy, the Birthing Center, located in the Bronx, aims to provide quality maternal and reproductive health care. One of their efforts includes the Womb Bus, a mobile health unit. Founder of the organization Myla Flores, joins me now to discuss their efforts. Myla, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, can you first just tell me a little bit more about the birthing place?
The birthing place is one. The birthing place wants to be a birth center in the future. We've been working very hard to bring up a birthing center where people will have access to midwifery care and holistic opportunities and a spectrum of different providers that can wrap around the type of care that our community needs to help reduce the negative outcomes that our community is deeply experiencing right now.
Now, I really want to talk about the Womb Bus. First, I just want to say it sounds like such a fun, creative, just beautiful thing. So can you just tell us, what the Womb Bus is?
Thank you. The Womb Bus is our mobile wellness hub. It is a creative alternative to transcend the systemic issues that we have in our healthcare system as it pertains to maternal health. And the Womb Bus is our pink vehicle that essentially goes to the different communities within the Bronx. We're focused in the Bronx and brings it right to your backyard. In terms of what we've been aiming to do, which is to open the birth center, we have to combat legislative issues and cross and overcome a lot of red tape. And that's in progress for the land that's been identified and committed to be the birthing place in the future. It's just been sitting fertile land waiting for us. But in order to make impact now while we await that future, what we envision, we have to do something. And so we're able to reach our community with education, and education just in the past year, the birthing place education has reached over 1,000 families with not just childbirth education led by doulas, but a whole bunch of supplemental education that teaches folks about epidurals, inductions, comfort and coping strategies in labor, a lot of pregnancy-focused education. And that's who we've reached with education. Mm-hmm. And now the wellness stage, which we're in now with the Womb Bus, reaching more folks. We had one full year of being out there and we were listening to our community. We had a survey. We were able to hear what is most pressing and most present. And one of the highlights, one of the number one things was folks having fibroids and not knowing, and sometimes that changing the trajectory of their reproductive health. So us being able to do early fibroid detection, we're going to have 80% of the time of all of our Womb Bus events, we're going to have access to fibroid screenings for people who are not pregnant. And then there's postpartum stuff. I'm not going to get into all the details, but just to say we're in the stage of wellness, right?
Yeah.
And we know that we can have that impact on folks. And some exciting thing that's happening right now is by the end of summer, we just put in just yesterday our offer to a location where we can have a clinic space and not just have education and outreach, right, but actual clinical care. So we're collaborating with an OBGYN, a midwife, doula, childbirth educator, and all the wonderful wellness professionals to actually have a physical place to reach people.
So I wanted to talk about a little bit, because these sound like amazing, just additions to this world. But I want to talk about just the birthing center, just in general. Why is that so important? Because I know that is a goal of yours or of the organizations, to have a birthing center in the Bronx, especially to grow into one. Why is that so important?
Well, first of all, it's an option that is lacking in New York State. Of the many populous states throughout our country, the 5 most populous states, for instance, have 30 to 70 birth centers, and New York only has 3 licensed accredited birth centers. And accreditation is important because it helps sustain the birth center in locations like New York City, which can be an expensive place to have a birth center. It gives facility fees, which allows the birth center to exist. That is a a tangent, but to say that in essence, birth center care reduces significantly the negative impacts, the negative outcomes, maternal morbidities, maternal mortalities, infant mortalities, infant low birth weight. The list goes on, and you can look at the American Association of Birth Centers Strong Start study, where they looked at birth center access throughout the nation and put everything into categories. Of the hundreds of birth centers that participated in this, significantly less of all of the things, and greater in patient experience, greater in breastfeeding initiation and continuing breastfeeding. So these are some of the things that birth centers really, really offer and statistically show, yet New York does not have access, and we're falling behind. And we really, because we are a state that has significantly worse statistics, we really need to get on board.
Now, a major component of this effort is educating Bronx parents. I think that's I think all parents should, get education when they're becoming a parent. But what will people learn when they interact with the womb bus?
Oh my gosh. It's really great to have a street team of birth professionals who are committed and activated and inspired and passionate to share their knowledge and their presence with the womb bus. We have partnered with the Conscious Birth Collective, the alumni of the BIPOC birth workers who have moved through a really great mentorship program, and the few BIPOC-led doula collectives who are mentoring these folks. We have a really amazing web of community there, and you could just strike up a conversation about, your postpartum experience. People just come up and they say, "Wow," and they'll read some of the stuff we offer. Infant support feeding circle, a doula. What's a doula? When I fed my baby the first time, and we're space holders for all of that. And we also have plenty of resources. The Bridge Directory is an amazing resource that we really are privileged to have in our community, because it has BIPOC professionals, perinatal professionals of all types that are not just in there, but they're vetted, and we're able to refer to those professionals. I'll just give a couple more examples. We're giving acupuncture to the community at no cost. We have, support circles. We have a lot of offerings in English and Spanish. Not all of them are there yet, but of all of the childbirth education classes I mentioned, like 8 or 12, those are all bilingual, and we're translating them to French soon. The offerings are just so many.
I wanna touch into that, because I think that's so important. Just when it's talking about access, we don't really think about like language barriers and how that could sometimes, I don't want to say prevent, but make it more challenging for a parent to really learn and understand. Can you talk about why that was so important? Also, like just in regard to language, but also the, making it easily accessible. Can you just talk about why all of that is just so important?
Oh, yes, accessibility. I mean, having a mobile wellness hub to begin with, and being able to reach people in their backyards or the park in their neighborhood, is one of the things that we know that sometimes folks aren't trying to go all the way across to such and such place to get somewhere. But if they know the womb bus is going to be in their neighborhood, they might just drop by and get a fibroid screening. Or if they're considering themselves as high risk, or someone has told them they were high risk because they were a certain age, a whole range of things that they could come talk to professionals and just hear and engage with them in thoughtful ways. And that's why we want to make sure that there's always a bilingual person, because Spanish is a very highly spoken language. And the person, Alicia, who is the director of education with me, is personally, she's Puerto Rican, and she wants to make sure that native Spanish speakers have access. And so we always, not just the education we have, but we're always considering how can we make our workshop, because we're trying. I'm going to not say that we're succeeding. We're succeeding in some areas, but there's so much when it comes to being attentive to that you have to consider, and how to always be creative and make sure that you're thinking about that, because it's huge. It's a big thing.
Right. And I also noticed that there's an effort to make a lot of people of color feel comfortable in a setting that is, focused on health, which I know for a long time, especially in the Bronx and other communities, there has always been like this distrust between, the health system. Why was it so important to make sure that, there was a focus on people of color?
Oh, I'm it's essentially that concept of being able to look at someone and feel comfortable, and not to say that any person that you look at who shares the same skin tone as you is going to help you make comfortable, but it's essentially being able to like have that natural hope that somebody gets you, and that you can open up a little more and change the angle and center Black and brown people, because that is so often where we're in the margins. And so when you bring us to the center, the care as a whole changes. And so that's how we want to think about it.
Now, how can people, who are interested, learn a little bit more about these workshops? And like, do you have to be a parent? Like, what is the process of kind of like being involved in that?
Okay, so from the angle of a blossoming family, that's or AKA pregnant.
Right.
We have plenty of offerings, and as we were in the communities, we're walking through and seeing many people who are not pregnant, and we're hearing about them talking about their reproductive journey, talking about their parents or themselves on menopause, and so knowing that reproductive health as a whole is a big conversation piece. And so we have programs that pay attention to all of this. And one of the things we did is we're adapting. This year we have like a whole range of new programs, and I'll just highlight 3. I've mentioned the early fibroid detection, and how just knowing you have a fibroid can totally change things. You can shrink it with your nutrition, and paying attention to that. You could use medicine to help shrink it, or you could get them surgically removed. And sometimes people we're meeting are not even knowing they have a fibroid till they're like 4 weeks pregnant. And, so that is one angle where we are giving people an understanding and options if they have to navigate fibroids, and to just prevent them in the first place. Right?
And I also think that it's just also important, like you said, options, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're not maybe experiencing those things, knowing that it's there, and that whenever you're ready, that place is there for you, I think is just so important.
Yeah.
But I truly want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. I already learned so much, so I truly appreciate it.
Okay, great. I hope to see you at a Womb Bus event. We're going to have all kinds of nutritional stuff this summer that, the average person can come through and just care for their reproductive health, whether or not they plan to be pregnant.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
To find out about dates and workshops for the Womb Bus, please go to their website at www.thebirthingplace.co/womb-bus. Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this.